All right, very quick impromptu update on Bitcoin for those of you guys on YouTube that may not be watching along. Bitcoin itself right now is currently testing its 50-day moving average and appears, for the time being, to be breaking below that simple moving average. Now, you may be wondering, Luke, why do we care about the 50-week moving average? And the reason we care about the 50-week moving average is because this is where we have consistently found bottoms in bull markets, or in this current bull market, before we reverse the upside. This has been that line in the sand that has always pulled through as the final support in these downtrends that we've experienced in the bull market, right? We could see it back here, September of 2023. We saw it here, September of 2024, August and September. We saw it again most recently in the spring. Just back here in early October, we held the 50-week moving averages as well. And now we are back at the 50-week moving average once again, this time below it now. Looks like we will close the week below. Now, as of today, this is the first time we've gotten below it. So the weekly candle looks fully bearish engulfing, but it still has 5 days and 7 hours to close until Sunday. So again, not ruling out that this is going to immediately close below here and this is going to be the end of the quote unquote bull market for Bitcoin. But I make this video to warn you guys that we have bounced at these levels previously, but ultimately when we do fail to hold that 50-week moving average, that is sort of the official starting point for people would consider to be a bear market. You can see here we failed to find support and hold it after a number of weeks in the end of 2021, and then we started trading below it, found resistance on it, and then we traded below the 20-week and the 50-week for a number of weeks here until we finally formed that bigger U-shaped bottom on Bitcoin's price. So it's very important that you keep this concept in mind, that the market is essentially at its line in the sand right now as to whether or not this is a bull market that is going to continue. Now, we haven't experienced a market cycle like this before in crypto with this much institutional buying pressure and institutional adoption, as well as digital asset treasury buying and also selling. So we have no idea what a bear market could look like in the world of Bitcoin post institutional adoption. But in terms of what we've always seen historically, we've seen Bitcoin come back down and find support somewhere along its 200-week moving average, which currently is at the 55K range on Bitcoin now. And that usually takes about a year for prices to get down to those levels, half a year at least, then a year to find a bottom before we reverse. Now, macro conditions are strong for the time being, so I don't see the macro fear telling us that we're going into a bear market across equities and across crypto. But this is something to keep in mind from a technical perspective, that we see this breakdown in price, and if it does cement itself with a weekly close, ideally 2 or 3 weekly closes below, that would signal that Bitcoin is in at least a short-term bear market for the time being. Not a good sign for the altcoins, not a good sign for Ethereum, for example, on the weekly chart, which is now below its bull market support band. Look on the daily, it's now back to its 200-day moving average. So in the short term, we could expect Ethereum to bounce from this level in price, given that this is a pretty historic long-term moving average. But again, for all of those Bitcoin holders looking for the same thing to happen here, it did not happen for the time being. We lost the 200-day moving average. So I make this video as a sign of caution. We did not reclaim this range here, which was very key to Bitcoin's price. And I'd been talking about this for a number of weeks inside a bull market blueprint with my members. If we don't reclaim this range, the market cycle doesn't continue for the time being, and we likely continue to chop sideways or roll over. In this case, we're rolling over. We've been de-risked out of the market fully for a number of weeks now with no altcoin exposure, no exposure besides our long-term Bitcoin holdings. So again, if you're not in that position, you've missed a lot of the clues that this market has been giving you over the past couple of weeks since this breakdown on October 10th. And I hope that you are starting to learn your lessons as a result of that, because again, this market is not up only. This market is not just ape into altcoins and see whatever happens. Look at all the altcoins on this watch list I have, all in the red, many experiencing even double-digit red on the downside for the day. So again, not a great looking sight for the altcoins. You'd want to see Bitcoin bounce here and find a bottom. This has historically been the bottom inside of the bull market that we're in currently. Again, this is the line in the sand though. If we don't find a bounce here, if we don't find support on this 50-week moving average and around this range, we are potentially facing a multi-week, multi-month period of downside in Bitcoin where we trade below the 50-week moving average and potentially even move towards that 200-week moving average. Now, I don't see that as being the most likely scenario where Bitcoin is actually able to make it all the way down to 55K again without quite a lot of unwinding from, let's say, digital asset treasuries, selling, and, a massive negative macro catalyst. But anything's possible in the world of crypto. So you got to ask yourself, and do you have a plan for capital that's potentially sitting idle in this market right now, not doing anything? And if you don't, then you may want to consider checking out the last video I posted on this channel as to what we're doing in BNB with our capital to make sure it doesn't sit idle in this crypto market. So this is a warning. It's a very impromptu technical video. I did not prepare anything for this. I just wanted to get this out to you guys as an emergency. Beware of where we are at currently in the cycle, the technical levels that we are flirting with, the confluence around the board here, and also be aware of the historicals. Lost that 50-week moving average. It hasn't been a good thing for the market. And if you think alts are decimated now, man, I could only imagine Bitcoin moving below 100K into the 90s, potentially even into the 80s, what that would do for the altcoin market. Not saying it's going to happen, but I'm not an altcoin holder currently, and I haven't been for a while. With that being said, guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.